This podcast is made on the lands of the Pambalong clan of the Awabakal people, and we acknowledge elders past and present. 60 years ago, the University of Newcastle opened its doors with a bold vision to make a real difference in its region through education, innovation and opportunity. Fast forward to today, and with more than 200,000 alumni around the world, that vision is stronger than ever. Welcome to Leading Conversations, a series bringing you stories from our alumni, the people who've shaped and been shaped by the University of Newcastle. In our first episode, Vice-Chancellor Alex Zelinsky speaks with alumnus and NIB CEO Ed Close, who's taken his Newcastle experience all the way from campus life to corporate leadership. His story is about community, curiosity, and the courage to keep growing, no matter where the journey takes you.
Welcome, Ed. Nice to have you here.
Well, thank you, Alex, and really appreciate the opportunity to come and have a chat.
I'm just wondering if we go right back to the start, Ed, when you actually joined the University of Newcastle. How and why did you pick us?
Yeah, great question, Alex. I grew up in country New South Wales in a little town called Orange, which is a little further west from the coast from here. And so as I guess I was discussing and debating with my family around where I'd like to pursue my university career, Newcastle continued to come to the top around the academic opportunities, the sport and co-curricular opportunity, and importantly, the community and lifestyle aspects. And I think when you weighed all of those things up and you consider that against somewhere like Sydney, being a much larger city and a little bit more daunting in a lot of ways, but also the small community focus that I was very much used to in regional New South Wales, Newcastle for me became a bit of a no-brainer. I did have 12 months to think about it. I had taken a gap year after school, given I'd finished fairly young in year 12, and so I was very keen to go and see a little bit of the world, and spent 12 months over in the UK and working at a school, helping out with sport and various different boarding activities, getting involved in campus life in a large boarding school in the UK, and also had the opportunity with several friends and family to experience Europe and do all the things that you don't get to see in little old Orange. For me, it was the perfect time to step a little bit away and have some life experiences. It also quickly forced me to think about independence, all of those sort of big, scary topics around financial security and work and how you manage budgets and all of those things that really prepare you for ultimately what is a very self-directed and independent-led learning profile at university. So for me, the timing was fantastic to take 12 months off. But then it was time to sort of get serious and come back to university. And that's where I guess I was drawn very much to Newcastle and everything that it had to offer.
So what did you choose to study with our university, and the reason you chose, I think it was a double degree, right?
That's right. Yeah, I did a double degree in laws and business. A little bit hedging your bets, because I was always drawn to strategy and business growth and all of those kind of aspects around the business and commercial side of the academic curriculum, but equally the aspects of law and problem solving and thinking about how you can navigate really complex challenges from a regulatory and legal perspective. And at the time, you're not really knowing which pathway is going to be the one that becomes most compelling and that you're drawn to. So there was an element of optionality that came with both law and business. But I do think, and even today, I continue to think about the frameworks and the academic aspects of those degrees. Notwithstanding, it was quite demanding. And when you're balancing all of the, the work commitments and self-funding your way through university and then sport and co-curricular, and of course, all the social activities that generally are forcing you to get really prioritised and quite disciplined with time management. But absolutely loved both of the degrees. I both drew a lot out of both of them as well.
Let's cast back. What was your first day like at university?
I was pretty daunted, I must admit. A combination of excited, daunted, and you're kind of stepping into the unexpected. And all of the things that you become really familiar with, particularly in a smaller community like Orange, where you've got lots of familiar faces around you and you feel somewhat vulnerable, but in a really safe way. And so I was fortunate enough to be part of college life as well. And so I think that gave me a community of students that were all navigating those same types of feelings as you move into campus life and start to get familiar with what is a very different way of learning you, as I mentioned earlier, you are quite independent, autonomous and accountable for what you do, how you show up each day and really how you embrace your own growth and development. And so I think it was a combination of all those feelings, but certainly that element of excited, keen to just understand, well, where does this take you? The whole way through, and maybe this is a big part of the Newcastle community more generally, is you felt really supported. I think it's this community mindset for both Newcastle as a very inclusive and supported community in some ways had a lot of similarities to what I'd become used to in regional New South Wales as well.
From the uni's Edwards Hall to the rugby fields, for Ed, college life shaped lifelong friendships and unforgettable moments. Because uni isn't just about what you learn, it's about who you meet along the way.
I still have lifelong friends that I forged from day one, day two, week, where, again, you've sort of got unfamiliar faces and you're quickly forming all of your different friendships and things, and everyone's sort of navigating this together. And but for me, I had 2 years on campus and loved every minute of it. Again, that juggle between social activity, sport, and, of course, work and all the academic criticality meant that you were always trying to work out where you spent your time and making sure that you focused in the right areas. It was fantastic to be able to spend time in the dining halls through to bouncing around, during exam periods and walking up to the library to get some quiet time to study because there was probably a distraction or two happening over at the college, and all those memories, from touch footy in the afternoons with all your friends, spending time around the pool. They really, memories I really hold dearly, and certainly the friendships that, gosh, it's nearly 20 years ago that I set foot on the campus for the first time. It sort of feels like yesterday in a lot of ways. So yeah, really, really, really fond memories of both Newcastle University and certainly campus life at TEDS.
What did you get involved in and what did you enjoy most?
Rugby was a big part of my 5 years here at university, and driving past Bernie Curran Oval number 1 down there this afternoon, again, the memories come flooding back of broken bones and various different injuries and all the fun and games, pre-season training. The one thing I would encourage any student that's at Newcastle Uni or thinking about Newcastle Uni is have a really open mind and be proactive around embracing it. Again, many of my close friends were forged through those community co-curricular activities, and it is something that you might occasionally overlook if you're so focused on academics or you've got other competing priorities outside of university. But we all know that the campus life and university life is more than just those 2 double degrees, and it's everything that wraps around that.
So it was really interesting. You talked about the memories coming back. Anything else that sort of you really took away from your time at the university, memories here?
The academic staff here, the support that they show, the commitment that they put into every individual was something quite unique, and something that maybe surprised me on the upside, that you don't expect to get that level of support, engagement and encouragement. And the little things that when you think about, well, those really busy and sometimes quite demanding and stressful exam periods, and when you're buried in the corner of the library trying to get some quiet time in the cubicle, and you sort of just pause and go, they were, again, times that you still draw upon now in my work life. And so if you think about the values of resilience and hard work, problem solving and all these different things, and sometimes how you navigate ambiguity, certainly in corporate life, there is no playbook sometimes to how you have to respond to decisions and opportunities and strategy. And so you draw on some of those things that sometimes you wouldn't have expected to draw on. And then they sort of surface, 15, 20 years later going, now I understand why we talked about that framework or why we covered some of that academic. And at the time you're probably thinking, this is a bit of a drag, but it all comes back in some way, shape or form.
You also had to sustain yourself. So obviously you've said that you worked casually while you were studying at the university. I know you started off doing some sort of working in hospitality, but then you actually moved into a very unusual, I think, occupation for a student. You became a published author. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I'm not too sure I'm selling any bestsellers, but you're right. It was a bit of an odd change of part-time work for me during university life. And so, I started in the hospitality sector, as many of us would, in working bar jobs. And she spent a lot of time out at the Knight Stadium there at McDonald Jones, working in, the various corporate boxes and serving beers, and probably worked in the NIB box actually at various points as well. So it's funny to go full circle in that respect. But you're right. An interesting opportunity emerged through a family friend of mine where they were looking to write some children's non-fiction educational book series, and quite keen to put my hand up because the work-life balance looked quite good, that I could, spend my time in the library or, on the couch at home necessarily, and not, pouring beers at the stadium, so to speak. And so the opportunity presented itself, and really over the last 2 years of my university tenure, I was lucky enough to be able to participate in some book series and have a few non-fiction fairly modest, selling books that would be somewhere buried, probably deep in some maybe some primary schools floating around. But funnily enough, my 6-year-old now, I'm strongly encouraging you to read these fantastic books that Dad's written, but I'm not getting a lot of buy-in at the moment on that front. So
I guess it probably must have made you think in a very different way to, obviously, in terms of presenting ideas or concepts, because I think that's actually quite powerful, because you are trying to get an idea across to young children, but you have to actually probably think in a very different way.
It was one of the more complex shifts in the way you deliver content and messaging for a very different audience. And that was a really fantastic learning opportunity for me. And interestingly enough, now, in my role as Group CEO at NIB, if you think about the range of stakeholders that I have to continuously engage with, and we've got roughly 2,000 people across our organisation scattered across the globe. And so each of them performing different roles and a variety of different tasks, but also external stakeholders as well. And so how you really nuance your messaging, your communication style, your ability to influence and convey a message is something I think about every day in my current role, albeit a very different context, drawing on the children's book series many years ago.
One of the things that's changed since you were at university, Ed, we've had this new program of career-ready placements or internships, where every student, every degree has to do a placement, and we help organise that. And it's really been a game changer for us. But I noticed that you already did that yourself when you were studying with us and did your own career placement. You want to tell us a bit about it and where it led you to?
I did, yeah. It was a different experience back then. I was quite eager and keen to get some industry exposure, particularly in my penultimate year of study. And so I had spent some time exploring, well, what would that industry look like? And again, back to the decision point around, would it be a legal path or would it be a more commercial and corporate path? And I ended up in Commonwealth Bank, of all places, and within their head office down in Sydney, as part of their graduate pathways into a banking career, effectively. A fantastic opportunity. And through a 12-week program, I was in a structured way. There was only a very small number of us from across Australia that were invited into this internship. We had the opportunity to get some exposure from everything from frontline banking out in branches through to contact centres, through to strategy, through to digital innovation, every part of what is a very large and complex business in Commonwealth Bank, as I'm sure you're aware. And so it was really my first taste of corporate life. How do you think about applying some of the academic principles that you've gathered across your 5 years of study and apply them in a real world context?
So where did that internship lead to you inside the Commonwealth Bank?
So I was really fortunate post that 12-week to be offered a full-time graduate role at the conclusion of my 5th year of study. And so it was fantastic to have some certainty and clarity coming into that final year. Not that you could necessarily relax and put your feet up, but certainly gave me good confidence around where my career pathway was heading. And so at the conclusion of my time in Newcastle, I packed up my bags from my share house and made the big move down to Sydney to commence my career in banking. And I spent about a decade down with Commonwealth Bank, and through that time, as part of this graduate program, again got deeper exposure to various parts of the business, particularly with senior management. And we had the support of some outstanding mentors, senior executives who've lived and breathed banking for several years. And so I was fortunate to have some doors open for me in various senior roles at Commonwealth Bank in relatively early in my career. And one of the lessons learned there is a little bit like first day on campus, is that you do feel somewhat vulnerable, exposed, a bit daunted, but also excited about the opportunity and how you navigate that ambiguity. And certainly one of the lessons I learned was you need to really own and be proactive with your development. No one is doing that for you, particularly in corporate life. And whilst we like to put support and structure, you've really got to own that yourself. And so that was really the how the 10 years played out for me at Commonwealth Bank, and loved every minute of it.
Let's now fast forward from that time to 2017 when you came back to Newcastle. Why did you come back to Newcastle? What was the motivation?
I was dating my now wife, who was a proud Novocastrian, and we met in Sydney, and we started to think about all those, serious decisions around where we'd buy a house, where we were thinking about raising children. And I always had this sort of felt sense that Newcastle was a place that had meant so much to me in those 5 short years during the university days. And so those fond memories started to come back, and Lara started to really warm me up to the idea of, would we think about making a move back to Newcastle at some point? And for me, it was then assessing, well, there's a lot of big decisions you need to make. I was having a fantastic time at Commonwealth Bank and felt like there was a really positive trajectory around my career at CBA. But equally, the pull factor of family and lifestyle and all those memories. But also, fortunately, there are some outstanding organisations in our backyard here in Newcastle, and NIB is certainly one of them, and we know that there's many, many others. And so I had to be patient and had to really start to then, again, back to being proactive, is how do you then start to create those opportunities? Because sometimes we all know that those opportunities don't present themselves necessarily at the time or in the shape that you would expect. And so networking and how you think about building those relationships, and again, getting out of your comfort zone and getting curious about, well, what is it about NIB and what can I offer NIB? And so I did have my heart set on NIB, and so it was fantastic that I had to be patient, but then an opportunity did emerge to come and lead the marketing and product function at NIB, and I did that for a couple of short years, and then had the opportunity to really then lead the entire Australian division. Did that for about 5 years. About 12 months ago, the opportunity emerged with our previous CEO after 22 outstanding and very successful years leading NIB. He was ready to step down and move towards retirement, and so that opportunity presented itself to lead the entire organisation, and it's something I'm incredibly grateful for, and never take for granted, because it's a huge obligation, but also an outstanding opportunity for me.
From its humble beginnings in the BHP workshops to a global business, NIB's story mirrors Newcastle's own, rooted in hard work, innovation, and care for its community.
Yeah, it is a special company, very much started in its foundations and roots here in Newcastle. And as the story goes, about 70 years ago, a tick over 70 years ago, in the bowels of BHP down in Mayfield, a small group of steelworkers decided to get together and put a little bit of their weekly wage aside. The idea was that they would be protecting themselves and their family in case one of them got sick or injured in the workplace, and they felt a little bit exposed and wanted to make sure that they financially protected themselves. And so Newcastle Industrial Benefits, or NIB, was born. And so that was where its foundations lie, not too far from the Callaghan campus here. And so over 70 years, the business has certainly grown in many and diverse ways, but Newcastle is very much still home base. So we now are proud to support about 2,000 people all over the globe, but very much still Newcastle-centric. So head office will always be Newcastle. We have about 700 individuals that live and work in this region, and we're really proud to be able to support the community and the families through that capacity, but also the work that we do through NIB Foundation. And we do some fantastic work with the Newcastle University and HMRI and many other community-based partners around how we can give back in the context of health and wellbeing in particular. And so where we get the best traction is when our 2,000 people are really focused on delivering on that purpose. And as they deliver on that purpose, the commercial outcomes follow. One of my objectives as Group CEO is around how do you consistently get the balance right between our customers, who are the lifeblood of our organisation, our people who make it happen every day, our shareholders, and then if we get the balance right between those three, that allows us to then sustainably invest in the community. We now support about 2 million customers across both Australia and New Zealand, and also have some small businesses in Europe and the US, and we're in travel insurance now, we're in the disability sector, we're in health insurance across a bunch of different areas. But one thing that we continue to come back through is around what makes our business model unique. And I think there's a really tight linkage here with Newcastle University, is that we live and work in this fantastic, vibrant community that likes to challenge the status quo. And this innovative mindset and disruptor mindset is something that NIB holds really closely. And we sort of see it as our secret sauce around our competitive advantage against some very big competitors that we're up against in the market. Whilst we are a health insurer at our heart, the diversity of skills, experience, expertise that we need from clinical and medical professionals professionals, through to technology experts, through to commercial salespeople, through to customer support, through to sustainability, legal, risk. Most of the academic curriculum, I suspect, through Newcastle University would be highly applicable to a business of our size and scale.
Clearly, the university's one of its functions is that we seek to provide an outstanding student experience to our students and graduate them and get them career ready. And they step into organisations like the NIB, and you've just gone through just about every degree that we graduate students are potential employees for NIB. But what can we do beyond just sending off our graduates to NIB? Is there other things that we could actually do? Like, what does your organisation see from a university like the University of Newcastle? What could we do together to actually make your business prosper and obviously the community prosper and the university to succeed?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, of course, those no regrets pieces around career pathways and programs that really allow that transferability of skills, experience and capability into our business. And I think I know we're actively working with Alex and the broader team around unlocking those opportunities, because I think, for me, having spent time in Sydney, and you think about there's some outstanding organisations in this community, and how do we think about this ecosystem play across health, financial services, infrastructure, mining, technology, how we can get the best out of all of those organisations. And Newcastle University, sitting at the epicentre there, is sort of the navigator to that ecosystem and how we unlock that. So I think that's a fantastic industry conversation to have here in Newcastle University. And how do we then create those opportunities to give choice and optionality to those students that might have historically looked, down the highway to Sydney or further afield, maybe to the UK, to say, well, do I have to head down there to really advance my career? And I think for us, it's about how do we unlock the skills and transferability. Beyond that, I think there are also a range of different opportunities around, particularly in the context of health and wellbeing and technology, around incubation, innovation of ideas. Some of the best ideas come from our customers and come from outside the organisation. And so sometimes we get very focused on executing our strategy, but the big ideas and the fresh perspectives can be drawn on. And no doubt there are many, many individuals that touch the university every day that would be customers of ours. And we've got about 200,000 customers across the broader Newcastle, Hunter, Lake Macquarie region. So, of course, we see this cross-pollination of individuals. And so we really want to lean into the going, well, help us think about the next big idea as well. And how do we think about innovation and potentially, unlocking some of that capability?
Yes, it is exciting. So when we look back, so 25 years ago, the Steelworks closed. The university was much smaller. Now it's actually one of the larger employers in the city. We bring in thousands of international students every year. So the whole place is in some sort of transformation. And we did talk about how Newcastle continually adapts to the new circumstances. Your own business has adapted. We're now talking about decarbonising without deindustrialising the Hunter here. I think there's something that can actually happen in this health space, because now the largest employer in the Hunter is Hunter New England Health, and all the allied health and medical professions, and now obviously a health insurance business that goes around that. There must be some opportunities for great things to happen. If we kind of looked at a crystal ball even 5, 10 years, 20 years ahead, what do you think could happen?
It's a fascinating opportunity, Alex, and I couldn't agree more. Certainly, and we're having some good dialogue with Hunter New England Health and, of course, the university and HMRI and stepping back with NIB and saying, well, how do we leverage best capability from all parts of that business? And the defined population where there's commonality sits at about 1 million people that are across this broader community. And there's several shared, but certainly the one shared goal and metric that continues to surface is around better health outcomes across that population. And I know certainly part of the HMRI strategy, and it's something that is very close to NIB, is around, well, how can we make demonstrable improvements and a step change around the population health of this broader community? And I think innovation sits at the epicenter of that. And so one of the things that we're doing at NIB, and we now have a business called Honeysuckle Health, which is an adjacency of ours that that supports about 200 people working predominantly here in Newcastle. And that business, interestingly enough, is comprised of not a lot of health insurance experts, but they are medical professionals, doctors, nurses, clinicians, dietitians, nutritionists, weight management experts. They partner with our data science and technology experts, so data scientists, analytics experts. And really, if you think about what we're looking to do there is to say, well, with big data now and the advancements of AI, working closely with our research partners, working closely with the Newcastle University and Hunter New England Health, how do we step back and actually say, we can actually start to risk stratify this entire population? And where we then start to get really excited is around, well, how do we shift healthcare from what I describe more as sick care? And so sick care, as we know, is quite episodic and it's quite late stage. How do we shift the goal to focus on prediction and using the advancements in technology, data, and these insights that I talked about, and using that capability to better inform insight? And with that prediction and insight, drive that focus on prevention. The fantastic thing and where there's big opportunity here is that you put the customer at the centre of all of that, and you put the local community at the centre of that. Is what better shared ambition to think about prediction and prevention as an alternative to treatment in sick care? And so where we really start to get excited is around, well, where can these organisations come together to unlock those types of challenges?
Ed sees a future where healthcare is proactive, not reactive, where technology and compassion work hand in hand. It's a vision shared across Newcastle's brightest minds.
Yeah, that's really an exciting vision you just outlined for the future. And it does go back to what sometimes when we talk to the HMRI, what the university wants to support here for the Hunter. I mean, the director there, Frances Kay, she says, we want the healthiest million people on the planet living here in the Hunter. That's a great vision. And you really need, obviously, the education, workforce, research, innovation agenda, and you need an industry to support that. And I think we've got all those pieces. So I'd love to be able to work with your organisation, realise that vision of that, preventative healthcare rather than, sick care, as you talked about. Looking back at your sort of what you've achieved, it's incredible. You came here as a young person from Orange. This is a young man who said, I'll take a gap year and then I'll come and study something which is broader than just a single degree, business and law, very complementary to each other. Made sure that you undertook some sort of extracurricular activities, living on the campus, being part of that, playing rugby, and then looking to supplement your studies with obviously some part-time work and becoming an author of children's books, which actually is a very interesting way. It does stimulate the creative part of the brain, I think, and it actually gives you a different way of thinking and really putting yourself at the heart of, or a reader would want, which is a young person who would listen to these stories or read these stories. So, and then that took you to an internship at the CBA and the start of a corporate career. Then you said, I'm going to move to Newcastle and I'm going to look for the right opportunity. And you crafted that through your own networking and abilities. And then you stepped into the business and ultimately started to lead the business. It's a fantastic journey from where to go to right from the beginning, from a young man from Orange, now as a leader in the Hunter and the CEO of a major Australian multinational business. Looking back on that journey, if I asked you, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would actually say as a bit of advice to young people coming through in the Hunter that might be in high school now, what would you say to them?
I think about it in a simple framework of the 3 E's. I think education, exposure, and experience. If I start with education, that should be an always on continuous learning journey. And so I ended up doing an MBA and have done various different AICD courses and continue to this day to invest in my education through both global and local organisations, because you can't continue to get enough of that. And we know the fast-paced nature of industry is evolving quickly, particularly in the context of digital automation, AI. And so as a leader of a complex business, you've got to invest and create the space for yourself. And so that starts from high school, university, post-university into the corporate life. And you've got to really think quite deliberately about that, because we can all make excuses. And, I've made many excuses myself. And if you think about juggling all the commitments, and you'll always find reasons to say no, that the timing's not right. The timing's never right. And it's a bit like the next opportunity as well.
So if I might just interrupt you there just to say that that's a very, very valid and important observation. We call that lifelong learning. That's what people are really successful people engage in that. It's not like you went to university, you're done, and you never have to step forward and keep improving. That's your first D.
That's the
next
first
one?
thing. So that curiosity and that really embracement of education. The second piece is exposure. And I talked a little bit about surrounding yourself with mentors, building a network, getting uncomfortable, picking up the phone and saying, I would really like to understand a little bit about your career journey, learning from experts outside and inside your organisation, or certainly if in the university context, you'll have lots of different experts around you. Gravitate towards them, be a bit of a sponge and actually extract that information. You'll be surprised how eager they are to transfer their own learnings and insights and knowledge. And my goodness, you learn a lot by doing that. And so there's that formal education piece. And then the second part is get that exposure. Lean into a project that might sit outside your position description in your day job, or go and get curious about something that might feel a little adjacent or a little arm's length from what you typically would do in your day-to-day study. So that exposure piece is really important. You've got to be proactive with that, and it feels a little exposing. The last piece is...
Before you get to the last piece, I'll interrupt you again and make a comment on that exposure piece. That's very, again, I think it's very valid, and you see people doing that who are successful. Sometimes they say, I want to seek mentors, people that you, as you said, Ed, be a sponge from, or to test yourself, to try to push yourself to take on a ambitious project, which you're not always exactly sure what to do, but you actually push yourself there and actually draw on others to help you achieve that. Absolutely right. So we've got education, exposure, and the third E is?
Expertise. And I think with the expertise, it's people will often, when you think about, the SWOT analysis and, always people get focused on the weaknesses. And it's a natural bias of ours to go, where's a gap that I want to close? But also recognize to say, well, where are my strengths and where am I an expert and where am I going to add significant value to the organisation or the study group or the team that you're playing in a position to go, I'm in this role because I'm an expert for doing these things. Of course, you want to continuously think about the opportunities and how you build out the broader toolkit. But keep coming back to say, well, and to use a bit of corporate jargon, but what's my competitive advantage? And what's my point of differentiation? And we all go through these different things, if that's trying to try out for a sporting team, or it's part of a group assignment, or what's my role in that environment? Where can I add the most value? And that expertise, sometimes, again, you've got to look at yourself and going, how do I convey that in the right way that's authentic and genuine and contextualized? But time and time again, you'll work out, I'm actually quite good at these three things. And so I'm going to really pursue those things and make it be known. And so when you package all of those things up, that was a framework that I spent a lot of time, and it feels like you spend a lot of time sort of writing it all down, but you kind of don't need to once you get the framework worked out. And then the last piece of advice I would have, and it's come through in the conversation earlier, Alex, is the only person that can drive it forward is yourself. And so you put all those different things in place and you get curious, but there is no playbook to how these things play out. And of course, there's an element of timing and luck and all those things, but we all know that you've got to put the work in and be really focused about that and be comfortable enough to voice it as well. And so those things will start to really unlock themselves if you really get out of that comfort zone and get proactive. So they were just a few little things for me that I've tried to carry through both academic life and then into the corporate space.
That last one, expertise, I sort of, the academic in me reminds me of these people called T-shaped people. And the vertical part of the T is the expertise part. And you've got to make it deep enough to be able to be really respected for the knowledge you have and that's what you clearly talked about earlier. But then there's the ability to talk to people in the adjacent areas. So you might be very good at accounting and maybe need to talk to people in finance, or if you're interested in data, learn enough about data analysis. You may not have to be the expert in it, but be able to speak to people's language. So that whole idea of people skills, which are those soft skills, which you've got in abundance, Ed, is the thing which connects up the T-shaped people into teams, which actually then builds great things. And congratulations on such a wonderful career that you've had to date. I know we're very lucky to have you here in the Hunter, and you're really committed to doing great things at NIB. We wish you all the very best, Ed, and thank you for coming on to the program today. And we're very proud to have you as an alumnus of the University of Newcastle.
I just want to say, Alex, thanks for the opportunity to come and have a discussion. And I'm sure it hopefully came through, but my experience at Newcastle University was an incredibly positive time in my life and couldn't recommend it more to any individual out there. And hopefully it was great to share a few little insights around my journey. And I'm excited to see what the next sort of graduate pathway looks like for all the different individuals that are coming through the campus life. And I'm sure TEDS is still going strongly down the road as well. So thanks for having me in and great to have a chat.
Ed's story reminds us that university is about so much more than study. It's about finding your people, your purpose, and your place in the world. This was Alex Zelinsky leading conversations with CEO of NIB Ed Close. This podcast was made on Awabakal land at the University of Newcastle's Callaghan campus. To hear more stories from inspiring leaders, be sure to tune into the next episode featuring Tarun Gupta, CEO of Stockland. Until then, this was Leading Conversations with University of Newcastle's Vice-Chancellor Alex Zelinsky.